Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Mills. I am one of the assistant directors of undergraduate admissions at Stony Brook, and I'm very happy to be able to introduce to you David Taylor, who's a professor at Stony Brook University and will be doing a presentation and then hosting your questions. I'll help moderate those questions so you can put them in the Q&A at any time. And we will also have a special guest today, Abigail, who's going to hopefully share some of her experiences as an undergraduate student in the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. And we'll be focusing today on our sustainability studies major and programs. So now I'll let David take it away.
Hey everyone, I see we're a little bit smaller but happy and strong band of people. So Kai Sonali and I think it is Teresa. You guys, feel free to ask any questions you might have in the chat. More than happy to answer these questions. So I'm guessing they can see the screen right now, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so they can see the slide. So real quickly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Sustainability Studies major in the Sustainability Studies program as part of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences and Sustainability. The faculty director is Dr. Pakrin. She also runs the sort of what is it, Environment and Human Impact division of this, which I'll talk about here in a bit. Within the field of this major sustainability studies, it's a somewhat broad sort of field of study. You can really sort of focus on everything from environmental, social, political, economic, as well as ethical, humanities, and outreach as it relates to sustainability. I try to remind people this all the time when I give these talks that one of the fastest growing fields for employment nationally is jobs related to sustainability, the environment, and climate change. Because one of the things is a number of places, and especially if you think of the state of New York, we have mandates in 2030 to reach 50% reduction in greenhouse gases, and by 2050 to reach 100% or 0% greenhouse gases by that point. What happens then is as businesses and local communities have to meet these requirements, they're going to need to be hiring people with backgrounds in policy, in engagement, in ecology and economics, in forms of communication, like in the humanities, and in terms of some ideas about environmental sciences. So that in that way, our students have been employed by different companies, different organizations, and government groups. I have a number of my students who work for nonprofits, as well as different groups like the Department for the Environmental Conservation and the Department of State. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So within one of the sustainability studies majors is the focus on economics and governance track. This is advised by Dr. Charbonneau, and it's really focused on this idea of the interplay between political, economic, and social systems. So if you look at the two pictures to the right, this is Port Jeff and Port Jeff Station on Long Island. Port Jeff is the sort of it's on the Sound. It's a coastal community that has a lot of money and a lot of things going on between the ferry that goes to Connecticut, and so there's a lot of wealth in the community. However, as you go up the hill from Port Jeff to Port Jeff Station, where the railroad station is, you see a different change in economics, and you see differing kinds of communities and people who are economically challenged. One of the things that Port Jeff and Port Jeff Station are interested in is trying to sort of upgrade the area around the station But one of the things that Dr. Charbonneau is working with with his students is focused on the idea of environmental justice and equity and making sure some of those sort of at-risk communities are not displaced by this development. That what he talks about is uneven development and sort of social and environmental inequalities. So one of the things that happens is in this track, you spend a lot of time thinking about different kinds of, sustainable economic and business practices. How does this work to where we can think about all of these communities and understand a way to sort of move forward in an equitable way? One of the things that all of our majors do in sustainability, we really focus on internships and independent research. And I'll go into that a great deal more about others, but I know Dr. Charbonneau has had students working in the communities to work on a major project with this. One of the things that happens often with our students, I just today wrote 4 letters for students who are going to graduate school in different topics between law school, between the environmental sciences, one's going into a more humanities-based, and the other one is going into the program at Columbia on sustainability and community. We work very carefully with our students. We know all of our students really well. I know every one of my students who graduates by first name, and I usually have done something along the lines of a major project with them. If you could move that forward, please, Amanda. Thank you. This is Dr. Pochran's track, Ecosystems and Human Impact. This is, as you may have heard, focused on the question of the interaction between human and natural environments. And this is really this question around a little bit about ecotoxicology, a little bit about sort of human interaction with the environment, and how we might go about this in a more sort of in a more sustainable way. It really is, though, these ideas of using the tools from biology, ecology, anthropology, GIS or geographical information systems, as well as genetics. So this is this lab that you're seeing here in these students. This is Dr. Pochran's kind of Stony Brook-wide famous worm lab. That's what it's called. And the reason it's so famous is because she takes in students who have very strong backgrounds in science and students who have no background in science. And what she does is she's able to teach them how to go about the practice of setting up experiments, following through and getting the research, looking at the data, and then analyzing that data in a good scientific way. She publishes with many of the students on scientific papers, and many of her students go on to graduate school in medicine. But also, too, Dr. Pochran's about to start a graduate program in ecosystems and human impact in sustainability. So if you type in Worm Lab and Stony Brook University, her lab will come up, okay? And the next one. So this is the track that I advise. This is the environmental humanities track. And this is for the students who have more of an interest in forms of communication, like writing, in visual art, in sort of also the idea of how am I going to reach out to different groups? How am I going to engage them? Just one, and I'll talk to you more about some of the things that I've managed with my students and some of the research projects. But one of these, next to the little picture of the sassafras in bloom in spring, is a book that I mentored that my students edited, and it was a collection of about 70 Stony Brook students writing about the 26-acre woods we have on campus called the Ashley Schiff Woods. And this 26 acres of woods is really, really very important for us to keep it natural, or as we call it, to keep it forever wild. And but this book actually did an enormous service in getting the president to actually start the paperwork to preserve this in perpetuity into the future, because this had such an impact from all of the students. We had readings with this book that had hundreds of people in attendance. And again, this is just one of the forms of outreach. My students, again, tend to come from this background of looking at, how can I use humanities, communication, and the arts? And yet my students also have to have a higher level of science and background in statistics and geographical information systems, so that they're a little bit different from the students in, say, English or visual arts. They're much more science literate. So if you could go forward. So one of the things that we all stress in sustainability, and I would say to you, no matter what you choose to do in your field of study in the future, talk to wherever you're thinking about going about independent research opportunities. I was just showing 3 of the ones that I've helped. So one of my students, the 3 students here on the little doc, they were working on a GIS, or geographical information system. And what they were doing is they created a survey about perceptions of the environmental health of the Hudson River. And they created a survey that got almost 900 responses from all the way up near the top of where it is near Syracuse, all the way down to Manhattan. And what they did is they created a story map, sort of pinpointing all of these different responses. And the people who gave these responses were able to add pictures and to add their own thoughts. And then the students compared that with the actual environmental health. And so the idea was to research the question in between what are our perceptions and what's the reality of the health of the river. The other 2 students up here next to the long picture of Long Island, I worked with them and mentored them on creating a documentary film. And the person that they did it on was Lee Koppelman, who's now passed away, but he was the Suffolk County planner. So Suffolk County is the eastern half of Long Island. And Lee Koppelman did more about land preservation and our aquifer preservation than any person in Long Island history. He was incredibly important on the east end of Long Island. And if you see this picture with him here, he was 92 years old when this picture was taken. And he actually passed away about 2 years after this. So we got this documentary film made just in time. If you go to YouTube and you type in Koppelman and Stony Brook, you can watch the 35-minute film that they put together. It's really outstanding. The Elizabeth down here, Schockman, she actually was in the sustainability studies under Dr. Charbonneau, but I helped her find an internship with the Students for Climate Action. And she worked with this group, and this was back when they were working with the governor's office. So she spent the summer in Albany, working with this sort of large group of high school students and helping them formulate and articulate their commitment to climate action. This actually led to the Climate Protection Act, which now the governor signed into law, which is about the 2030 and 2050 greenhouse gas mandates I mentioned before. If you could go forward. I say this to students all the time, and in fact, actually, I'll tell you, my boss, the Dean of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences and Sustainability, actually gave me the job next fall. So he actually had me not teach a course in order to do this, that I am going to be the czar of internships. And my goal next year is to we have currently 80-something students doing internships this semester, and my goal is to double that. And then eventually my goal will be to probably even triple it. I say this to you since you're in high school, and I know you don't kind of fully understand a lot of the things that goes on at the university, but I do remind all of my students, when you go to the university, yes, you should make good grades and you should be a very good student. But in addition to that, there's a different demand on your generation that people expect, and I think you really should be doing internships. You really should be making professional connections and figuring out the work you want to do and figuring out the work maybe you don't want to do, but equally building relationships with people so that by the time you graduate, you can use them to help find the kind of work you might want to do. It has never been more important that for every student in every field to think about an internship. I can't stress that enough for you. This is something that is a huge priority for marine atmospheric and sustainability. And I can promise you in sustainability, I'm mentoring 5 students right now in different internships. So they have to report to me every week about what they're doing in their internships to sort of make sure what's going on. If you could go forward. So this is a nice little picture of a butterfly called a red-spotted admiral. It's much more of a kind of summer one, but you'll see them maybe now. It's been so cold at night, I'm not for sure. Beautiful little flower, butterfly, and if it closes its wings, you see these beautiful sort of red and purple spots on the bottom. So again, here are the people that are on this. If you have any questions, email any of us, email me. I'll forward you on to whomever you want. I try to, again, to remind students, sustainability in some ways is this sort of focus on an interdisciplinary study. It's a very fluid and sort of more open kind of degree program where you're allowed to sort of add and pull and choose classes that can kind of build a little bit more the degree you imagine. You're given a lot more flexibility than other majors, say like engineering or something. Ours is sort of focused on the idea of helping you to build what you want. And then especially at the end of that, thinking about a major independent research project and an internship. Those are the things I stress for all of my students in the environmental humanities, okay? So at this point, I'd like for Abigail to talk a little bit about her experience.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Abby. I'm currently a 4th year majoring in sustainability studies. So I guess my experience, the reason why I chose this major in the first place was because I wasn't exactly 100% sure what I wanted to study in college, but I was very, at the time, passionate about making the right choices and decisions, and I guess trying to be more environmentally conscious in my like lifestyle choices. Like I was very into like the zero waste stuff and like recycling, composting, and being mindful of like the energy usage and like just like the little things like that. And then I guess what made me like go forward with those studies 100% was taking AP Environmental Science my junior year. So that's what made me want to study that in college. I guess one of my favorite aspects about the major is, like Dr. Taylor said, it is very diverse and also like interconnected with basically any topic you can think of. So no matter what your interest is, there's probably a class that kind of like caters towards that. For example, last year I was taking very diverse classes. Like I took a class that Dr. Taylor taught, which was philosophy of the environment, which kind of like talks about like why people make the decisions that they make and like why do we care about this cause in the first place, because a lot of the times like there is like the science in your face, but not everyone like talks about like the meaning behind all of it. And another class that I took, which is kind of like completely different, is an epidemiology class, which is kind of like the study of how diseases are distributed throughout populations, and also like the factors and especially environmental factors that can influence the distribution. So it's very connected to a lot of aspects, and I really appreciate that. I guess as someone who has like different hobbies and like different interests, it's nice learning about the different sectors of like how you can like relate the environment and sustainability to that. In terms of like work, uh I've never really done any work directly related to the environment, but I like I said, there ever since I've been studying this, I've been more interested in connecting like what I'm currently doing to the environment and sustainability. So I've been working like part-time in like customer service and especially food service for a really long time, probably since like the beginning of high school. And ever since I've been taking these classes, I started to think when I'm on shift, like, oh, like how does our waste management practices like have an impact on the environment? Like what is the impact, or like what are the different like water and electricity usage like in the store? And like I guess also thinking about the different like food and drink alternatives that can help like lower greenhouse gas emissions. Those are all things that I've become more interested in with like the food or like coffee industry, which some people might not think about at first because um I think in general, like when going of like starting the major in general, people just think like science and like uh not really like the political, economical, societal aspects of it. So I'm very grateful. Oh, and I think Dr. Taylor, he also mentioned Dr. Cochran's lab, which I am actually taking this semester, and I think it's a very great opportunity for people that might not have a lot of research experience, or like I didn't have any research experience like going into it at all. And um it's a very good opportunity like if you want to try to explore like the options that are out there. Right now like we're studying, or my experiment is how glyphosate, which is like found in a lot of pesticides, can affect human health. And I think that's all.
Abigail, where did you go to high school before
Oh, where
coming
did
to?
I go to high school? I went to high school in Nyack High School. It's in Rockland County. Uh, I don't know if they know where Rockland County is.
So you live on campus?
Uh, I used to live on
Yeah.
campus for a few years, and now I'm living with some friends off campus.
Cool, very cool. So we have a couple questions that were pre-submitted that I think both of you could probably share some insight into. It's interesting to hear about all of the opportunities to do research and internships. Are there ways to get involved on campus, like through clubs and organizations, or through friend networks in these areas, like in the areas of sustainability and the environment?
Abigail, I'll let you go first.
Um, like I said, I have not directly joined a lot of environmental experiences like clubs or organizations, but there is always a way to implement that in the club that you are in, or like any type of work that you do. So for example, I'm part of the Philippine United Student Organization, which is just a club that spreads like Filipino culture. But in my role, which was events coordinator, we're basically in charge of like planning and organizing events. And throughout that role, I tried using what I've learned in the classes that I've taken and implemented that in how I plan events, what I want to talk about, and always try and like connect culture with the environment, which is something that I'm very interested in, like how different cultures care for the environment, like have different environmental practices and just things like that.
Okay. So one of the things that I would say is, so I advise what's called Sunrise, the climate change and environmental justice student organization. And in SOMAS, we also have the environmental club and also the marine science club. We really do spend a lot of time talking to students about this idea of building community. I think it's really important to think about this, that these different groups can help you build community both on campus, but then when you have that on your resume, then when I help you try to find a internship, then I can show that you've done a little bit more rather than being, yes, you should be a good student, but it's also doing a bit more than that.
That's great. And we do have over 350 clubs and organizations at Stony Brook. So even if you think there's something that you have always wanted to do, you probably can find it at Stony Brook. Or a lot of students have actually started their own clubs and organizations. We have a really great question. Can you say more about how sustainability studies as a department interacts with departments that focus on environmental science, like maybe the coastal environmental studies major, which is really our environmental science major, right, or the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences in general? And can students take classes across the majors and departments within SOMAS that'll count towards their major?
So this is the one where, keep in mind, sustainability is a part of the School of Marine, Atmospheric, and Sustainability, right? We are one of the 3 divisions within it. And if you look at especially these majors in sustainability broadly, whether it's environmental design and policy, whether it's coastal, all of our classes have these connections to different programs, both within SOMAS and also across campus, right? If you're in environmental humanities like mine, maybe you might be taking more classes from something in the humanities and arts, but they won't all be in sustainability. You'll be connecting with different groups. If you're taking the environment and human impact with Dr. Pakran, you're taking classes in maybe marine science, maybe over in ecology and evolution. And there's lots of possibilities. If you look at the major in the description, there's lots of possibilities for what, especially at the upper level, that you can sort of move those around and exchange them. Also, the undergraduate advisor for all of the students in marine and atmospheric sciences and sustainability is one person. Nancy actually works with you to help you create a degree plan that both kind of satisfies your interest in diversity, if that's what you want, and make sure you're still going to graduate on time. So, you know, this is that part where we really do try, especially in sustainability, to make sure our programs are interdisciplinary and that it's a little bit easier to maybe find another major or a minor that can fit really well within that. That's something I really deeply value. I actually really typically ask my students to double major if possible.
And one of the great things about the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences is you also have a whole list of choices that you can minor in, but you don't necessarily have to exclusively double major or minor within the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. You can also explore majors within the College of Arts and Sciences. Someone who works in the admissions office, actually, one of the admissions counselors, Brian Frabel, actually was a sustainability studies major and completed his MBA through the Fast Track MBA program. So there's so many ways you can incorporate different interests with your desire to have an impact on sustainability in the environment. So that's a great question. We have a question that came in that was pre-submitted about kind of like class size, what to expect in terms of teaching styles. Is it, lectures? Is it interactive? What are some experiences you've had, Abigail?
I would say when you're a freshman, you take a lot of classes that have larger amounts of students. So it's a lot more lecture styled and those really big lecture halls. But when you start to progress and become sophomore, junior, senior, that's when you get into the smaller size classes, which can also be lecture based, but I've noticed there's a lot of group discussions. There's a lot of, I guess, growing closer relationships with your professors and your peers, like, because you're gonna notice, you're gonna have a lot of classes with the same people when you start to become an upperclassman, because it's starting to narrow down to what specifically you want or you are interested in. Whereas when you're a freshman, you're taking a lot of the like the general classes. Like I think one of the classes I took was like a US government, which I think is part of the major requirements. There's like an economics class that's also like part of the major requirements. But when you finish those classes, you start to get into like the more like specifics of it.
And so we have another question about how many students would you say might be in a larger lecture versus a smaller class? And so a typical class at Stony Brook, if you average out, we have 18,000 undergraduate students. We have over 200 majors, minors, and combined degree programs. So we always say the average is about 50 students, but you'll have extremes where you might have 200 students in a lecture with a recitation that might have 30 students, or a lab that might have 20 students. And then you might have an upper division major specific class that has 10 students. So it could really vary, really across the board. I think our largest lecture hall holds 600 students, but that would probably be a class that many different majors need to take to satisfy that requirement. So for example, a lot of our science majors have to have different chemistry classes. So you could be coming to chemistry from a pre-med or health science angle, from an engineering or other STEM field, from the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. You'll have all different types of students in that sort of class. Whereas as you progress and you, as Abigail said, start to figure out like what area you want to focus on, you'll see your classes in those areas definitely shrink. David, what are your class sizes typically like?
So right now, actually, Abigail is in an upper level class in writing and photography about the natural world, and I capped it at 30, and we actually now have 29 students. And then my other class, which is a little bit lower, has 21 in it. And then my ethics class that I teach in the spring, I cap it at 36. So mine at the upper level are always pretty small, but my understanding is across SOMAS, once you're into the junior and senior classes, you're not going to have a lot of overwhelming. I know a few of my students are taking upper level microbiology and it's capped at 35. So you're not going to have those huge, huge, huge classes like other universities, you know, the undergrad, you know, the first year, you know, kind of basic courses, some of those will be large. But in SOMAS, we really make an effort to try to keep our classes, especially, you know, in the junior and senior years, a lot more intimate. I want to know my students' names.
And I also always forget to say that first year students also take a class called Stony Brook 101 and 102. Those are 1 credit courses in your first year that are capped at about 20 students. And you'll also take, unless you waive out of it, English composition and English literature. And those are usually capped at 20 to 30 students as well. So for some of you, depending on the size of your high school or high school classes, that could even be smaller in some cases than the classes that you're in now. Another great question from Kai. Do you need to indicate in your application that you're applying to the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences? Is it a separate application from the College of Arts and Sciences, and can you switch? So that's a good question for me, since I'm in the admissions office. I actually, just to give you some inside information, I actually do the first read for all School of Marine and Atmospheric Science majors. And I think one of the great things about Stony Brook's application process is that you get to indicate right from day one what major you want us to consider you for. So you're not even just applying to the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences or the College of Arts and Sciences. You can choose a major within the school. So in this case, let's say it's sustainability studies. You would indicate that on your application. That's what we would review you for. But let's say after your first year at Stony Brook, or even sometime within your first year, you realized, wow, I really want to study. We have a brand new major that's starting in the fall, a Bachelor of Science in Climate Science. And let's say you realize, you know what, I want to switch my major. You can work with advisors like Nancy Black within SOMAS to make sure you have what you need to transition and declare that major. Or again, work with her about adding a second major. You can also switch out of the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences or into it if you start out in another major. The only areas that becomes a little trickier in is the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences, because they have very limited space and usually more qualified applicants for the seats available. So in those cases, it can be a little trickier to come into the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences and then, add a second major or change your major to something like mechanical engineering or computer science or civil engineering or something like that, because they're often courses that you need to take to be qualified, that you have to take at Stony Brook, and you're still running into that space availability. But students can minor in other areas or take classes that are open to everyone to kind of get a feel for other disciplines. But like Abigail was saying, you will take a really wide range of courses because we do have a liberal arts core curriculum with some STEM and non-STEM requirements that you'll get to complete over your 4 years at Stony Brook. So yes and no, I guess is the short answer. Let's see. So we had a question that came in. Where did it go? I was just looking at this. Oh, so someone pre-submitted a question about for you specifically, David, and how you ended up teaching sustainability studies and at Stony Brook.
Sure. So this is an interesting question. So my PhD actually is in English. I'm an odd duck that way. in the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. I'm the only tenure-track professor with a degree in the humanities. However, my dissertation and my background was on the history of science. And I've actually held jobs in environmental science and environmental studies programs all of my career. I've never actually been like in a normal English department. Again, you know, my research is everything from different uses of GIS to outreach. We will do some sort of work on data analysis, looking at efficacy, about forms of outreach, and even art. But I also am a writer, and I do everything from scholarship to creative writing. A lot of my research is in Cuba, because Cuba is in many ways a somewhat interesting country to study sustainability. So what happened was about 10 years ago, I saw this position here at Stony Brook, and I really, really liked the idea of having a more interdisciplinary program to work in. So I'm on grants with Dr. Cochran in the Worm Lab. I just put in a grant with someone in ecology and evolution this summer on creating a new undergraduate certificate program. So I actually work with different kinds of groups. I've had students work with shark, doing outreach and social media on the shark research team in the summer. And so my sort of work is really always focused on this question of forms of outreach, forms of communication, environmental ethics, and how our values and our communication sort of shape our community and our sense of values. And as I remind my colleagues in the sciences that, you know, we need good science. We don't know what to do if we don't have good science. But in addition to good science, we need to find ways of communicating that science so that we begin to persuade people to make choices and you know, take action to actually then follow through on that good information.
Thank you. And we have a question about kind of more common double majors with sustainability studies. Are there any trends in that area?
So it's very often like in sustainability studies, if you were with Dr. Charbonneau in something more like governance and economics, political science is a very common one. I've had 3 or 4 students actually do double majors in political science and environmental humanities. It's very common, folks who are in Dr. Cochran's lab also double major in ecology and evolution. It's a little harder when it's sort of straight biology and pre-med, because much like those other programs, that's a very, very sort of limited and focused sort of study. But it's also really common where I have had students, you know, minor in environmental humanities because they really enjoy the classes and they're chemistry majors. Like right now, I have a chemistry major who's taking our class that Abigail's in on nature writing and photography because she's really interested in it and passionate about it. And I've actually helped her to find 2 internships at Cornell at the Ag Extension cooperative out here where I live. And, you know, so it's the one where in sustainability, it's a little bit easier to sort of mix in between. A lot of our students, you know, will be in environmental studies or something more like, you know, some level of marine science. Because again, a lot of those core classes cross over and carry the same value. And a few of the upper level classes also can sort of cross between. And this is where I try to remind students all the time, work with your advisor to make sure how you're doing this so that you're not here longer and you're getting the most out of your time.
Thank you. And Sonali, you had a question?
Hi, yeah, so I don't know if you answered this already because my Wi-Fi's been cutting out, but I'm interested in like independent research. I know you have a lot of like advanced technology in the lab, like the nano Raman microscope. So how available is that to students who want to conduct independent research?
So what is the kind of research you would like to do again?
Well, I'm interested in like microplastic research.
Okay, so actually, this is where Dr. Cochran's lab is a really good resource right now. She's actually, she was just asked to work on by the city of New York to look on a project about the microplastics from detergent pods. Do you know the plastic, right, that's surrounding that? Come to find out, it's actually not as benign as we have thought. Actually, it's somewhat dangerous to water systems. And so one of the things that she's doing is she's looking at how these sort of leach into the water systems and the long-term impact of those. And this is where, Abigail, are you doing anything with the planaria or the others? What is your research project on?
Mine is specifically studying glyphosate and
Okay.
the like soybean plants and worm health.
Okay, and so glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup or the herbicides, and it's widely used throughout all commercial farming. And so glyphosate is in our food. And the question is how is it impacting our gut health? Is it sort of killing our gut, our microbes, our sort of gut microbes? And can we also repair both our soil ecology, which would also suggest we could begin to repair our food and therefore repair our own health? So one of the things that's really common, though, is I know of students who are looking at that. I also know on the marine side, there are some people beginning to look at microplastics as it affects coastal systems and marine systems. I can't speak to them so much right now, but I know within sustainability, Dr. Cochran's lab has already looked into microplastics.
And Sonali, at Stony Brook, we have an office called the Undergraduate Research and Creative Activities Office, Eureka. Their purpose, their whole kind of mission is to help students that want to do research either connect with faculty or figure out how to write grants to get funding for research, or continue to do research they're already involved in, but figure out a way to incorporate that into Stony Brook, connect with graduate students that are doing research in different areas. So they're a wonderful resource when you're on campus. And I would check out their website. It's, if you type in undergraduate research office at Stony Brook, there are a couple different ones that'll come up because we have research offices for faculty and grad students and undergrads. But having a dedicated undergraduate research office with people there who can meet with you, they do a lot of outreach as well, but they're really there as a resource if you can't find exactly what you're looking for, or you're not sure where to look and which faculty to contact, because you don't necessarily want to just be like sending out emails to every faculty member asking, are you doing this research or doing that research yourself? So they're a wonderful way to it's kind of like a guidance counselor for research. And also Nancy Black, because she works with students and faculty across all of the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, will also have some insight into, who might be the best person to ask. So when you're going, to meet with her or virtually meeting with her for an advising appointment during your first year at Stony Brook, that's another time where you can kind of pick her brain and find out, hey, have you heard anything about this area and who I might reach out to? So there are a lot of ways to find what you're looking for or start something new, which in my opinion is one of the great things about the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, because it is such a close-knit community, and everyone who's in the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences has kind of a bigger purpose and mission, each in their own individual ways. And they're encouraging undergraduate students, especially, to get passionate about those subjects, because you're going to be the next, scientist or person doing research and continuing that on, generationally. So that support is something that I think is a very important part of what Stony Brook can offer. Did you have any other questions, Sonali?
Nope, thank you.
So Abigail, any kind of final words of encouragement or support as students think about applying to Stony Brook? If you can remember back to your senior year in high school and you're applying to college, for how to kind of acclimate to college and be successful.
I would say even if you're unsure, there's a lot of things that you can do your freshman year that's not specifically like, oh, doing this specific major that can help like lead you to, I guess it helped lead me to my point now. So being in that SBU 101 class, joining the clubs I joined, it kind of just led me to what I'm studying now and what I want to, or what I'm interested in doing in the future. So I would say just take the interest that you have now and try and put yourself out there, like meet new people, like have conversations, and they'll provide you with resources that you might not know about to help you, I guess, get the best college experience that Stony Brook has to offer. Yeah.
That's great advice. Thank you. David, any last words for this evening for our guests?
Sure. Yeah. So one thing I would really encourage you is, as you're thinking about schools, I provided you with the emails for Dr. Charbonneau, Dr. Cochran, and myself. Reach out to us if you have questions about the major. I think everyone is always interested in talking with you about that. The other thing I would say to you is, as you start thinking about universities, and this is sort of my own background, you guys were asking earlier about how I ended up, at Stony Brook in this field. I actually started out as a physics major because math was always pretty easy, and I'd already done calculus in high school and all that. But it never really interested me as much as doing some of the other work in the humanities and then still continuing my interest and passion about science, about the natural world. And the one thing I would encourage you guys is to follow your unique passion. Follow that wonderful, interesting thing about you that makes you not like other students. Because in some ways, that's going to be what's going to define your career and a sort of a happy work life long after school. And it's the one where I know you asked about it earlier, but I would really encourage you to look at ways of blending your passions, blending this sort of idea of what it is or the things that you enjoy so that you can create something out of it. All right. Because I think especially in sustainability studies, those are the students who sort of create unique and wonderful futures.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining us. We hope that we provided the answers to your questions and gave you some insight into sustainability studies at Stony Brook and the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. Good luck with your senior years, with your applications. Try to enjoy yourself and take some time to, savor your final year in high school. You'd only get one, so then you'll be on your new journey in college. Wish you the best of luck, and thank you so much for being here. Good night, everybody. Thanks, David. Thanks, Abigail.
Thank you. Thank you, Abigail.
Bye-bye.